What's up, Local Hack Day? This is Sam Agnew. I'm the Order in Dev Evangelist, back here to give you a talk on APIs 101. So, my elbow, damn. So we're gonna try to keep this. I'm gonna try to keep this super noob friendly. Like this is very much geared towards people who are like brand new to hacking, who just like want to learn how to build stuff. So APIs are probably, if you've written code before, it shouldn't be too much of a new concept because APIs are everywhere. It's nothing new. I know you hear about like, okay, like, oh, there's the ordering API and there's Twilio, and you hear people doing all these cool things, but at a very base level, they're just, an API stands for Application Programming Interface. So it, pretty much all it is it lets like one computer program talk to another computer program. So, let's get into this. So, your language has an API. Like if you do Python, like you want to import modules and stuff. That's an API. If your frameworks have APIs, like if you have code interacting with someone else's code, that's the basic idea. But the most common manifestation of this, when you hear people talk about it at hackathons, is RESTful APIs. And if you were listening to Kishal Parikh's talk on web programming earlier, you should know that REST stands for representational state transfer, and it's pretty much a way of like communicating like via HTTP. So let's get started with sending some HTTP requests, because that's the most basic thing that you're going to want to do when you're trying to bang out some code. We're going to use an API that our buddy Shai, the organizer of Local Hack Day, made called bearcatfacts.info. It's one of my favorite websites of all time. As you can see, bearcats have a prehensile tail. Isn't that beautiful? See another one. Not every bearcat gets high from catnip. Whether or not a bearcat responds to it depends on a recessive gene. No gene, no joy. Okay, so as you can tell, this URL that you visit just generates a random fact about bearcats. Why bearcats? I have no idea, but we'll have to ask Shai. So what's happening here is your browser is sending a GET request to bearcatfacts.info, and some servers responding by giving you this text. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to get this text programmatically, which is should be pretty simple. So I'm going to use Python. That's a pretty common language that everyone loves, and I'm a big fan of it. So let's bang out some Python. So I'm gonna start bearcatfacts.py seems like a reasonable name. So whatever language. What's up?
Zoom in.
Oh, I should zoom in. You should be right. Is that good enough? Can you see that? Cool. Even more. Make this nice and toasty here. All right, cool. So whatever language you happen to be using generally has a way of sending HTTP requests. In Python, we have a library called requests. So we're going to import that library. So what we want to do is we want to send a GET request to bearcatfacts.info. So you could do that by just saying request.get and then giving a URL. So http /bearcatfacts.info. So what this is going to do is, this is super simple. You can see in 2 lines of code, I already wrote something that's going to interact with something on the internet. And it's pretty revolutionary because at its core, like you can just build a cool hack out of that, like out of just communicating over the internet. So we're going to print this here. And you're going to see that we're going to be sending a request. So let's run that real quick. Let's see if we can get a Bearcat fact printed. Okay, so it's printing this right here, response 200. That means that we got a successful response from the server. So what I'm going to have to do is .text here, because this request.get is returning a request object. And in the request, there's a text that we can print. So let's see. All right, Bearcats are the reason why Waldo is hiding. That's cool. I didn't know that. Bearcats take between 20 to 40 breaths per minute. It's a lot of breaths. I don't know if that's pretty crazy. Bearcat's brain is more similar to a man's brain than that of a dog. I didn't know that. I don't know if these are true, but I hope they are. So, you know, this is a super simple. We just printed something on the command line, and it's a Bearcat fact. And you can do anything you want with this. You can let's put that in a loop. Let's make a for loop. So let's print out like 10 Bearcat facts. That'll be pretty tight. So what this should do, so you can do anything with this, right? Let's see what this does. See, it's printing out a bunch of Bearcat facts. Bearcats do not sleep, they wait. You should own a Bearcat as a pet. I guess that's a fact. That's not an opinion. All right. What do you think about that, San Diego? Okay, so you could store this in variables. You could be like fact equals blah blah. Like you can have an array of Bearcat facts. You could say like and then we can print out like our array. So let's see what happens here. We're just gonna have an array of Bearcat facts once all the requests run. Okay, so look at that. So you know, once you can send an HTTP request and get data back, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with it. So I'm gonna talk about something else real quick. So right now we're just getting text back from this API. Like you send it a request, it gives you text. But there are other forms of communication. Like you're not just going to get a string every time you use an API. So I'm going to use the order in API as an example, just because I work for them and that is something I'm familiar with. So this is our API Explorer right here. Let's check out this one, delivery list. Okay, so this is a little bit different because you have to have an API key. So there's this thing that there are tons of APIs out there. There's Twilio, there's SendGrid, there's Order In, and for a lot of them, you're going to have an account on whatever service they're using because you don't just go to a URL for all of them. So I already have created an API key for Order In, so let's check that out. You can all look at this and be evil and steal my data or whatever. So we're gonna send a request to the restaurant API. So what we're going to do is we are going to give it an address, and it's going to give us all of the restaurants that are delivering to that address. And we can do this in the browser too, because this one is just a simple GET request like we were just talking about. Okay, so I'm going to go to, this is the r-test.order.in/. Okay, so these are the documentation. This is the documentation. Usually when you're using some web service or some form of API, they're going to have documentation on their website. As you can see here, we're just at hackfood.order.in. And this is the delivery list endpoint. So we're going to go to /DL. This is just a web route. This is just you're going to add this to the URL. So we're going to go to /DL. I guess that stands for delivery list, huh? /datetime. Datetime means I'm going to put ASAP, which means we want food now. So ASAP. Zip code. Okay, I'm going to give it the old Order In office because that's just, I can see I already typed this in at some point because that's just an address I happen to have memorized. It's just in my brain forever. Okay, so I'm going to give it the zip code, the city, the address, and that is this right here. So when I enter this URL, I'm not going to get any data, even though we just looked at the documentation. That's what it requires, but there's a little bit more to it than that. So this is because this isn't just a Bearcat facts, right? So this is going to say unauthorized or something. Okay, error code 401. So what I got to do is, as I was just talking about with the API keys, earlier in their documentation, you have to authenticate, right? So we're going to add this query string at the end of our URL. So this is we're just sending some variables in through the GET request right here. This isn't really something you need to worry about. It's just you can copy and paste it, like there are instructions right here. But this is where I'm going to paste my API key right here, and you're all gonna see my API key and be able to do terrible, evil things with it, but not really because it's not in production. So cool. All right, let's copy and paste that. Throw that in here. Some magical stuff, isn't it? All right, so now you're gonna see a big blob of stuff. All right, it's beautiful. All right, so this is called JSON. So a lot of APIs will they'll communicate their data in some way, shape, or form, right? So JSON is just some serialized method of like representing data, right? There's other stuff. There's like XML and whatnot, but we're gonna stick with JSON for now. So this is just a JavaScript object notation. If you've ever written JavaScript, you'll notice that it looks exactly like a JavaScript object, hence the name. And we can look at the data here. We can mess around with it. Zoom in a little bit so it's clear. Okay, so this is just a list of restaurants. This is Eisenberg's Sandwich Shop. It has a restaurant ID, has a name, has a phone number, all that stuff. You can all call them right now, I guess, but that'd be rude. Okay, so it just has all the restaurant information. We can get this programmatically. I mean, so the example I just showed you used this URL, and we can even just straight up, we can even just replace this URL right here if we want. Such awesome Vim through, huh? Cool. All right. Let's print that. We're gonna have to. Since we're getting JSON, this is just a method of the request object in Python. You're gonna have to look up some documentation for whatever request library in your language of choice, but this will print some JSON to the terminal. So all I did was I changed the URL that we were requesting, which is right here. So it's the same concept as the Bearcat fax, except we added a little bit of authentication in here because not just anyone is requesting this API. So let's see what happens. It's going to be disgusting. It's going to look absolutely deplorable. Look at that. That is terrible. But it is a bunch of data, and that's what we care about because we can do stuff with this data. And that's what we're going to do. So let's look at this. We can inspect the data here. So we can print out the name of every restaurant, let's say. So this is just a Python list of restaurants. We're also going to have to serialize the JSON. So I'm going to do JSON is it JSON.loads or JSON.dumps? Which one is it? Load. Well, yeah, just real quick. I keep getting those methods confused. JSON, Python. Super simple. So this is just an example of when you're coding, you're just going to look shit up. So JSON.dumps, that dumps some JSON, and decoding JSON is JSON.loads. Okay, just wanted to double check before I did some stupid stuff. Okay, so JSON.loads is going to take this big blob of text inside the parentheses, and it's just going to convert it to a Python object, which is going to be a list of restaurants. So let's check to see if that works. File name is still bearcatfax.py, but whatever. Okay, expected string or buffer. Okay. I think it wants. Is that JSON, not a string? Let's see if that works. Value error, huh? That's terrible. Okay. Am I doing this right? well, whatever. So as you can see, we have this JSON right here, and we can mess around with it. But most APIs don't require you to use HTTP requests. For example, the ordering API has a Python module, which is documented right here. It's open source because open source is awesome. And we can install it, pip install ordering. I already have it installed, so we can just import it right here. And instead of using HTTP requests, we could just use our Python module that already has all that extracted away for us. So I'm going to import order in, and I'm going to copy this line right here, which is just the setup line for the API. So for servers, I'm going to give it our test server, which is ordering.test, and I'm going to give it my API key, which you've all seen me copy like 3 times now. All right, so let's take that giant hash, the beautiful hash, copy that. Okay, so now we can just use this ordering API module to call these endpoints. So instead of giving it a big URL and getting a bunch of JSON from that, we're just going to call a function in Python, and that's about as simple as it gets. Because usually, you import things and you just use them. So let's delivery list. That is the API I was using. Okay, so let's look at the documentation. Delivery list takes, as we said, the date time, the zip code, and the address data and stuff. Where is it? Right there. So we're going to give it the exact same arguments we gave right here in the URL, but in string form in Python. So I'm going to say ASAP. I'm going to give it the zip code, the address. So the address was 902 Broadway. I'm going to give it the city and the zip code. So the city is New York, and the zip code is 10010. Okay, so let's see what this does. This should print a big giant dictionary. It's printing out the, yeah, there we go. So that is just a ton of data, and it's already serialized. So, because the API is just, this Python module is just a wrapper around our REST API. So you can do a ton of stuff with this. You can do restaurants equals that, and then loop through the restaurants. So let's do that. So for restaurant in restaurants, let's just print the name. So restaurant. So what I'm doing here, this notation is just a dictionary in Python. So each restaurant has it's like a key value store. So if you look at this right here, NA corresponds to the name. So if we try to access that element, it's just going to print the name. So we're just going to print the name of every restaurant that is delivering to 902 Broadway in New York. And I see that I clearly spelled Broadway wrong. So let's fix that. All right, so now let's see what this is going to be. So it's sending a request, storing things in the restaurant. All right, cool. So now we have a giant list of restaurants. Look at that. The Loop, Lou's Baguette, Blue Dog Cafe, Becca Sushi. There are a lot of restaurants in New York, let me tell you. Okay, so take a little stretch. So you can see we're already getting a ton of restaurant data. Like, that's cool. We already have the names of all the restaurants that are delivering here. We can do a ton more too. We can go through their menus and everything. So let's mess around with that. So we can give it a restaurant ID. Each one has a field called RID, I believe, or just ID. So let's print all the IDs. Cool. These are just a bunch of numbers. So let's just take this one. Let's find out what restaurant that is. Okay, so instead of just finding out what restaurants deliver to us, let's take a look at the menu. So we have another endpoint called restaurant details, and that will that you just give a restaurant ID, which is the one I just copied and pasted from the terminal, and it gives you all the data on that single restaurant, like the menu and stuff. So I have no idea what restaurant this is, but we're about to find out. All right, cool. So let's run that and see what happens. Okay, so as you can see, this looks disgusting. We can use the API Explorer to do the same API request and have it not look disgusting. So I'm going to click on restaurant details, and I'm going to give it that same ID. And now we can mess around with the JSON. Cool. So it's 11th East 20th Street. It's in New York. Here's its phone number. These are the cuisines it has. And now we can look around at the menu, right? So we can see like, okay, breakfast. What's in breakfast? What's for breakfast? Let's find out. Oiko's 0% fat yogurt. Cool. So you know we already have menu data. We can do a ton of things. Like APIs are pretty versatile. There are a ton of them out there. I've only showed you 2 of them. I've only showed you Bearcat Facts and Ordering, but you know every major service pretty much has one. And if they don't have a public one, you can reverse engineer some things and figure out what they're doing internally. So like you know, if you wanna order food, you could use Ordering. If you want to send emails, you can use SendGrid. If you want to like send text messages or receive phone calls with your programs, you can use Twilio. There is just so many cool things out there. I would say you should check out this website, programmableweb.com. What is it? They have a ton of APIs. Like you could just go check out what kind of cool stuff is on there. Like Facebook implements mobile app ad enhancements. Cool. Like you could just see a bunch of cool stuff on here. Like they have a directory. Pretty much like anything you're looking for, you can find, right? Like you can see they have Twitter and all that stuff. But yeah, like it's the internet. There's a ton of things out there. There's a ton of data that exists out there on the internet, and you have access to all of it. Like pretty much, as a programmer, as a hacker, you are like a modern day wizard. You can, if you have an idea, you could just make stuff happen by like there's an API for everything. You can go like. You have an idea, you can just bring it to life by finding like something that does most of the work for you, and that's pretty much like the power of what you could do these days. Like as a developer, you just have so much power, and APIs are the things that give you all of that power. And I think that about covers it. I was trying to keep it super basic. If you need any like specific help, you can definitely hit us up with the live streaming. We're all mentoring out here. We have a posse together, and like this is all of it's documented on the web. I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to what APIs were and how they kind of work at the basic level. Definitely let me know if you have any more problems. You can all tweet at me if you need anything. My Twitter handle is sagnewshreds. Tweet at me and tell me what you need, and I'll respond immediately if I can. So yeah.
All right, questions.
Any questions?
First question. What is OAuth?
What is OAuth? Who said that? Who said that?
For me.
Oh, that was you? So OAuth pretty much lets you it's like another level of authentication. So it lets you do things with an API that you normally wouldn't be able to do via like sending HTTP requests. So for example, if you're going to use a Twitter API, right, you can use Twitter API to post like tweets and like to do things that you would normally only be able to do as a user on your account. So there are these, Twitter has like an OAuth API. It's like, it lets you authenticate. So let me find an example. So there are tons of apps, like you'll notice like Facebook has it too, that when you go to like use an app that is integrated with Facebook, you have to click like the Facebook login button. It's like, oh, like authenticate via Facebook, and then you click like, okay, authorize this app or whatever. And that's pretty much some developers using OAuth for you to give them permission to use your profile data and to act as you or whatever permission you gave it. And that gives you a ton of awesome like things you can do also, because like, I don't know, you can just, you can have someone authenticate with Twitter and then just have them post tweets of Richard Stallman quotes or something. You can do a ton of hilarious stuff with that. We definitely check out some of those. I know like GitHub and Facebook and Twitter all have OAuth APIs that you can do a bunch of cool stuff with.
What are the worst APIs you know?
The worst APIs I know? Oh man. Would it be mean if I said Twitter? Oh, you know what? You want to know what? I mean, just because of the documentation. But oh man, that was a good question. Bearcat facts, obviously. You know, because Shy made it. Like, what is this? What is this garbage? British Bearcat owners spend roughly 550 million pounds yearly on Bearcat food. Is that true? I don't even know if that's true. That's terrible. There's also oh man, I'm really blanking out on this. There's like one really bad one that I complain about all the time, and I don't even remember. Let's find out. Terrible APIs. The good, the bad, and the ugly of REST APIs. Let's see this. Let's see what the internet thinks. That's what you do when you don't have an immediate answer. You just Google something. REST is good, so is bad. Okay, I can get on that. Let's find out the ugly. I don't think this is specific APIs. This is just bad stuff about them. What do you think is the worst API, Swift? You have a ton of experience in that.
I have no opinions.
Yeah, that's a stacked question. I probably shouldn't mention it. When I said Twitter, I just meant because I was frustrated one day when I was using it. But you know, you can do a ton of powerful stuff with it, so that's cool. But definitely Bearcat facts. Say Bearcat facts 100%. Sucks. You shouldn't use it.
Any other closing thoughts?
I'm a bad person for even using it. That's all I can say. Like I'm gonna go stuff my face with pizza and cry myself to sleep after that one.